Yes, we are live.
Welcome to Random Assignment, everybody. And your long nightmare is over of waiting for the next Random Assignment episode. It's arrived. Thank you for joining us. My name is Bob Bowden, and that's Corey DeAngelis. And I'm sunburned, and I think Corey's just tanned. So,
yeah, I was burnt a few days ago, but I guess that went away. I was in Virginia Beach for a few days last week, doing a little mini vacation with the dog, and we were in Williamsburg before that for a couple of days as well. But I heard you got a new dog.
I went camping with some friends and the new puppy named Mo, M-O-E. Who is featured right there in this photograph that I took of Mo. Right off camera is one of my friends like holding a leash trying to get Mo to be settled down. But anyway, so so the camping Mo was very good in the tent. And, anyway, so cheers to...
How old is Mo and what type of...
Well, he was a shelter rescue. They say hound mix. They estimate about 4 to 5 months based on his teeth. He has some baby teeth and some adult canine teeth. And then, but then my friends of mine have said, I've gotten a lot of Rhodesian Ridgeback and also a breed I'd never heard of called Blackmouth Cur, C-U-R. If you look up both of them on the internet, they look exactly like Mo. They are, in so many ways. Anyway, so there are our dog updates and travel updates for everyone. I wanted to start off, actually, if you don't mind, I wanted to start off this week because of something. There's like a little bit of a layered story. But on our last episode 2 weeks ago, I laid out this extremely laborious and complex and torturous distinction between getting sick and transmitting a virus, between stopping transmission and stopping sickness. I was explaining those are different things. That to many they're conflated. Oh, everyone needs a vaccine. Why? Well, it's just all good because 95%. Well, the 95% is stopping sickness. That's not 95% at stopping transmission of the virus. You can still inhale it, have it in your body, breathe it out, send it to someone else, never get sick. The vaccine has helped keep you from getting sick. May not 100%, but has helped that maybe. But you're still transmitting it. I made this distinction. I think it was only 7 hours long, this distinction I was making between sickness and transmission. What happened? 1 or 2 days after that show, someone came on and spoke to the Michigan legislature. This woman is Dr. Christina Parks. She has a PhD in cellular biology. And I wanted to just start off by showing, this is after our show 2 weeks ago, what Christina Parks said to the lawmakers in Michigan.
Hello, my name is Dr. Christina Parks. I received my PhD in cellular and molecular biology right here in the state of Michigan from University of Michigan Medical School. And so I'm very well versed in the science of both these mRNA gene therapy vaccines, this kind of technology, as well as what a vaccine is designed to do in the body, what it can do, what it can't do, and the fact that this is extremely complex science that has been oversimplified in the media to basically take away our freedom of choice. What I want to address today in this limited time is the fact that vaccine requirements and mandates are based on the faulty assumption that the vaccines in question prevent transmission of the pathogen, right? Does the vaccine for DTaP prevent transmission? No. Does the vaccine for flu prevent transmission? No. Do the vaccines for COVID prevent transmission? No. In fact, they were never designed to do that. All right, so you're asking, what about this 95% effectiveness? If you look at those clinical trials, they do not say that they prevent transmission. They expressly say that they're measuring whether they attenuate symptoms. So they're 95% effective based on their clinical trials at attenuating symptoms for the first variant, which is essentially gone in our population. Right now, the predominant variant is the Delta, and CDC Director Walensky basically said that these vaccines have no ability to prevent infection by and transmission of the Delta variant. So our policy needs not to be built on the hope of what we think something we want it to do, but what the data actually tell us. So do these viruses do the vaccines prevent the virus from infecting and replicating in the nose and nasopharynx? No. They've only been shown to prevent that replication in the lungs. They're different. The mucosa is very different than the lungs. It's very different than the blood. You inject it to the blood, you make antibodies in your blood. The virus isn't infecting your blood. It's infecting your mucosa, and you don't produce any IgA to neutralize it.
All right. So what happened next? This is the postscript. This is why I'm so agitated. We posted this video on Choice Media on our Facebook and Twitter, et cetera, and webpage. Facebook took it down for what they called misinformation. They said this PhD cellular biologist with not, by the way, some mail order school. This is University of Michigan PhD speaking before the legislature, the House, the People's House of Michigan. This should not be heard according to the Facebook. I don't know if it's a bot or if it's a human, but according to whatever the algorithmic rules are that tell Facebook what content to remove, they deleted this from our Facebook page and called it misinformation.
Well, she was pointing out that the vaccines were effective in reducing symptoms. So I don't see why there would be a problem with that. If anything, it seems like it's a positive thing that she was saying about the effectiveness of the vaccines. So yeah, I think where there's an issue is pointing out that they may not be as effective for
the vaccines.
Reducing
there's
transmission.
One thing the vaccines don't do. Apparently, if you say anything that could even critique a part of the alleged vaccine efficacy that some people believe erroneously, that's sufficient grounds for removal of the speech. Even though, look, this is before the state government, like no matter what, if someone comes and says something before the legislature in a U.S. state, aren't the people allowed to hear what's said, even if it's a crazy idea? If someone comes and rants a crazy idea before the Michigan legislature, seems like there would be legitimate grounds to show people that content. Does C-SPAN stop and start their U.S. Senate and U.S. House coverage based on whether enough people and big tech agree with the speaker that's in the speaking before this governmental body? So there's a whole nother level that has nothing to do with the analysis of did she say it right, or should she have issued more caveats or something, which is just, this was speech in a state legislature being banned from the public.
Yeah, strange. Go ahead. The relevance is I think if we can tie this into the vaccine mandate for employers with over 100 employees that was issued by Biden last week, and for federal government employees, and in some states, they're saying that this could apply to the public schools as well. I don't think Biden should have the power to do that.
Well, where in the Constitution is it? It's right. It seems like a 10th Amendment issue. Of course, so many other things are 10th Amendment issues as well, including the U.S. Department of Education. But if just to pivot to the Biden thing, look, the CDC didn't have any power to set policy, and they did anyway. And after the Supreme Court said they didn't have that power, they proceeded to try again. So you kind of have the feeling that, we're entering an era where this three branches of government thing is just kind of being canceled by the cancel culture. Now it should be if you just agree with the president, they should just executive order anything you agree with, and it's all fine. That's the new civics. The new civics says just the executive branch just executive orders all the policies they want. So that's my reaction anyway to the.
So do you think the mandate applies to larger private schools that have lots of employees? I would think, based on his announcement, if you're a private business, you're a private school,
employees, right? Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, but what I thought was weird was that, at least in his announcement, he was, encouraging governors to require for the public school districts, but in his executive order, he wasn't saying that this will apply to public schools too. I've seen some articles saying that, because it's under OSHA and in like 22 states or something, the public schools listen to OSHA, then it would be a requirement in the public schools too. But for the rest of the states, it seems to me like larger private schools would be forced to have a vaccine mandate for all employees if they have over 100 employees, but not for the public school districts in those states. And that's what it just seems weird to me that there would be a difference. If anything, I would think that the federal government would have more of a say over government entities than private schools.
Of course. And, people often point out that other vaccinations are required of kids in public schools, measles, mumps, rubella, all that stuff, polio. So that's true too. But I mean, on the other hand, this is a kind of thing where like, if you're vaccinated, so you believe so much in this vaccine, explain to me why you have now moral authority to tell me what to do. Because you're worried still? But I thought you were vaccinated, and I thought therefore this vaccine is so great, you're willing to mandate it on everybody, and yet it's not great enough for you to have confidence in it protecting you without ordering other people what to do.
Well, another thing on the requiring vaccinations to attend schools. Yes, there are requirements for a whole host of diseases, but we don't have that requirement for all of them. We don't have.
They're not federal requirements, for that matter. I mean, let's just to cite your point earlier. They're not federal requirements.
And there's only one state that requires the flu shot for students every year, and that's Massachusetts.
Oh, the flu shot.
That's not required every year.
Right.
So what do you think about Los Angeles public schools? They're the first school district, period, and they're one of the largest that is now requiring vaccinations for students 12 years and older.
To a fault, which is sometimes it works to my advantage, other times my disadvantage. But I'm a person who has sometimes kind of a snarky take on the world. I almost say like, "Oh, that'll be even more school choice, won't it? Why don't you make tell everybody what to think about every issue every second of the day, and be woker and woker and woker until literally you have like a ban on thinking, and that'll be great for choice." But go ahead. Why don't you tell our viewers what you're talking about?
Yeah, so Los Angeles public schools, they were originally, I had heard about this a couple of weeks ago where the union was kind of saying that they supported vaccinations for students in order to go back to in-person instruction for those students. And then later I saw an article about how the union still supported that, but that they didn't include it in their bargaining position as a requirement to reopen the schools. But then we saw, I want to say September 9th. So this must have been about a week ago. Almost a week ago, that the board of the Los Angeles Unified School District Board unanimously approved, I think it was a 9-0 vote, to require this for students to return to in-person instruction. And so now the question is, are more districts going to follow? Or is this just a Los Angeles thing?
I mean, usually, yeah. I think there's a category of education policy person who's so in love with groupthink and kind of socialist, kind of one size fits all everything, that it's hard to believe something LA would do that many, not all, but many other districts wouldn't say, oh, well, if they're doing it, that's obviously that's what the commune says or something. That's what, I don't know. Of course, the answer to your question, yes, I think it'll happen. Go ahead.
I was gonna say something else that happened out of Los Angeles that has to do a lot with our title of the episode, Politics Invade Classrooms. As you can see in our image for the episode today, 2 times 2 equals coup, 3 times 3 equals not 9, but insurrection. And at least the kids know these things now. And this had to do with this Los Angeles story. Los Angeles Magazine did an interview with the president of the largest teachers union in Los Angeles, the United Teachers Los Angeles, with their president, and it almost seemed like the president, it's like they didn't know it was an on the record conversation or something. Just like the things that she was saying were just so out there.
She said there's been no learning loss, right? That was and also I don't want to misquote. I guess, do you have the direct quotes? So
I have them.
Be specific. Yeah, it was stuff about how, well, there's a silver lining is kids have learned to be revolutionaries, and that's more important than things like math and reading.
Yeah, the name of the president is Cicely Myert Cruz, and here are some of the direct quotes from the Los Angeles Magazine exclusive interview. Quote, "There is no such thing as learning loss," end quote. She responds when asked how her insistence on keeping LA schools closed, mostly locked down over the last year and a half, may have impacted the city's 600,000 kindergarten through 12th grade students. Begin quote again from the president of the UTLA. "Our kids didn't lose anything. It's okay that our babies may not have learned all their times tables. They learned resilience. They learned survival. They learned critical thinking skills. They know the difference between a riot and a protest. They know the words insurrection and coup," end quote. So essentially making the case that it's not that bad that we closed the schools for over a year. They didn't lose all that much. They actually benefited.
Coup, and 3 times 3 equals insurrection. They learned. Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually a good thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's basically, it's a movement. It's not in we don't mean to imply every public school. Certainly not. Many of our listeners or viewers may be sitting in a place where they don't see this at all happening where they live. And so, I understand that, but it is, oh, look who wrote that. But it is a trend that we're seeing increase, and to not talk about it because it's not everywhere yet would be irresponsible. I think it's not these are not one-offs. This is not isolated incident somewhere that we're trying to gin up as some sort of national thing. It is a national thing, even if it's not in your town yet.
She had also mentioned in the interview, quote, "Education is political. People don't want to say that, but it is," end quote. And at one point in the interview, she also mentioned something about the potential Newsom recall, which we've all heard by now that Newsom survived the recall by a pretty large margin. I think a 2-1 margin against being recalled. Results came out last night and today. But she had said something. Let me find this. Yes.
And to be fair, too, this is the union president. This is not the superintendent. This is not the school board. This is not someone who is technically in charge, although we'll roll our eyes and kind of talk about how they have kind of a, the unions often are telling the CDC what to do, et cetera, as you well know. But in many ways, I have more power, actually, than the superintendents and the boards. But anyway, go ahead.
She had said, essentially flexing her muscles at one point in the interview, quote, "Here's the trouble. You can recall the governor, you can recall the school board, but how are you going to recall me?"
Just exactly the idea to which I referred a second ago. I didn't read that quote. Yeah. How are you going to recall them with the answers you aren't? And they have more power, and they can, even if you oppose them stridently, they can wait you out and then wait till they, install the sycophant after you as a politician who will then do their bidding. I've seen it all over the place.
But there's another way to hold them accountable, Bob. There are 2 statewide ballot initiative proposals right now in California. They're both essentially the same proposal to allow the money to follow the child. It'll be on hopefully 1 or 2 of these will be on the 2022 ballot in California, and they'll be put up to the voters.
Well, you asked a second ago about Los Angeles and their policies that, involving vaccine mandates, et cetera. And I responded by saying, in a way, it could actually cause more choice because people will just kind of flee. It'll be a Skexit, as I once said, as a hashtag, SCH, exit. But so I wanted to point your attention to that ny1.com story, the largest school district in America, New York, and a stunning number on how many kids, it's now fall, schools opened up again. How long have you and I been talking about, I wonder how many parents are going to kind of check out of this whole thing, of this whole system? Well, Only 82% of students attended school on Monday. That's in New York City. That is a stunning number. The idea that 18% of the kids, that's practically 1 in 5, I guess 1 in 6 kids didn't show up to school. Now, I know there's a million people who say, "Oh, that's once, it's just the first day, and maybe they'll be there in a week, or maybe they'll be there in a month." I don't know, but we're starting to see this drop off. I have to click back over to my screen.
Is that what 200,000 kids almost didn't show up?
I don't have the raw number, but yeah,
because if there's like 1 million students in New York City about. In the public school system, 82% showing up. So maybe 170,000.
Yeah. Or 880,000, right?
Yeah, something like that.
And then we see there's the other link I sent you, which is kind of this idea writ large, which is the time.com. Do you have that one?
Yep.
It's talking about the children who disappeared. And so, you just say, oh, it's New York City. Look, 3 million U.S. students vanishing from school, and the crisis isn't over yet. So this goes through a bunch of other examples, just like we showed those New York numbers. This backlash is starting to be real. And, there's no official endpoint time where you declare it, this issue kind of done or whatever. Who knows how it'll play out going. How do you react to this, Corey? Is this really is this homeschooling exploding? Is this online learning exploding? Because they say
I think it's virtual charter schools. I think most of it's probably homeschooling formally, not enrolled in a public school or a private school. Especially looking at the Census Bureau data showing a doubling or tripling of homeschooling over the past year and a half. But I also think it's virtual charter schools just based on individual states that I've seen charter school sectors just flourishing with enrollment. And we saw right away when the schools closed in March 2020, families started to immediately move to virtual charter schools. So I think that's part of it. And this Today article cites this Bellwether Education report. And in this, I haven't read all of it, but I just, right before we started, I glanced this really quickly. But it says, quote, among public schools, enrollment in charter, and these are estimates by this organization, but they said, quote, among public schools, enrollment in charter schools grew by approximately 600,000 students, perhaps because many public virtual schools operate as charters, while traditional public schools lost 1.7 million students. So
interesting.
I believe charter schools had like 3 million students pre-pandemic.
It was about 3 million, a little over. Yeah.
So that's like it's like a 17%, 18%. If these numbers are right,
sure,
17, 18% increase in charter school enrollment, while we're seeing public school enrollment overall decreasing in the U.S. by a different estimate from federal data source. I think it was NCES, was like a 3% reduction in public school enrollment. Whereas in the charter school enrollment, this report's showing the first numbers that I've seen nationwide for charter school estimates for this past year and a half, about a 17, 18% increase. So I think
about a third of the drop in public schools seems to be taken up by the charters. And you got to say to yourself, so what's the other 2/3? And it just begs the question to me, I wonder what percent is just no learning. I wonder what percent of that other 2/3 of the reduction in traditional public school enrollment is just kids just sitting around, just playing video games, so.
You never know. That's part of this conversation that we just we don't know what a lot of the kids are doing. We just don't have the data yet.
Right. Okay, you want to go next?
Yeah, let's see. What I thought was interesting, we've been talking a lot about the masking conversation in the schools. Some states with Republican governors have banned school districts forcing all kids to mask in public schools. Others with Democratic governors have mandated that all public school districts require all kids to mask. You've had other states where they leave the choice up to the district. Most recently, there's been a lot of attention in Florida with Governor DeSantis, who originally had a ban on mask mandates in the state. And there's been a lot of court cases going back and forth there wasn't a court case that ruled against DeSantis, but the latest one that I've seen reported here in the Washington Post, an appeals court, I think it was the First Circuit, the First District Court of Appeals in Tallahassee, Florida, sided with DeSantis. And now, from what I can tell, it's back to allowing the families to choose for their own kids whether to mask or not to mask in public schools. So not allowing the school districts to implement universal masking or a rule to force all kids in the public school district to mask.
So wait, so clarify that. So you mentioned, so there's lawsuits. We know DeSantis wants no mandates. Some schools are wanting mandates.
Yep.
But what's the news?
So it's kind of been a back and forth. First, it was DeSantis not allowing this, and the school districts, some of them were upset about this. And there was a decision, I don't remember, Leon County Circuit Judge John Cooper ruled with the districts that they should be able to force all kids to mask in the school district.
I see.
Which was against DeSantis, but the latest one
lost that, right?
But now we have a decision with the First District Court of Appeals in Florida, in Tallahassee, siding with DeSantis. So now it's back to parents are in the driver's seat instead of the school districts.
Well, I didn't want to bring this up. I almost did, but there's a datausa.io site that I follow, which is COVID. They have charts for 7-day rolling averages of COVID cases per capita. So it's interesting. The Florida did have a little surge in the summer, but it's now come back to be almost exactly the U.S. average. I don't see a lot of mainstream media reporting that, of course, I say jokingly. It's still, Florida is now I actually wanted to bring it up on our show once Florida literally was below. It looks like it's trending that way, but it's still a tiny bit above the U.S. average overall, but it has come down from what it was before. So, so it will be harder to disparage DeSantis once the Florida number is officially lower. The 7-day rolling average per capita is officially lower than the U.S. It'll make it a lot harder to make that point.
Yeah, I think a simple Google search, you can find this stuff pretty easy, right? This is Florida. You got the timeline, 7-day averages of COVID new cases per day. And when did schools open around here? I guess things have gotten better since the schools have opened, which kind of runs contrary to the claim that if we open the schools, community transmission rates are going to go haywire.
Well, this might be kind of fun. Actually, just for fun, can you type in datausa.io/coronavirus? datausa.io/coronavirus.
Can't type worth a crap, Bob, because I was educated in government schools. I think this is right. I think this is okay.
Okay, good. So if you scroll down a bit, you can see the states. I know you can just deselect deselect California and everything else, but just keep only Florida and US. It makes it a lot cleaner. There you go. Okay. And you can scroll down. Yeah, that's good. You scroll down all the way, and then you see where it says 7-day rolling average. Then scroll back up just a little bit back up. And then you see there on the per capita. Yeah, that's because that's the relevant thing. Right. So then you scroll down and look at the number. You can see there. See the Florida is the yellow line. Over time, it had surged above the U.S. average, which is, I guess, I can't tell what color that is, gray or blue or something. Yeah, but it's now come back down to the U.S. number. Right there at the right side of the chart, those two curves are are touching. So anyway, so that's what I was bringing up. So let me turn to another video clip I found, which is you're about to hear from a teacher in Virginia. It used to be that the Virginia news was like we would hardly find any choicemedia.tv news from Virginia. It was just sort of boy, that has changed the last year. So Fox News refers to this. They say appears to be Josh Thompson. If you have that NEA link I sent you, Josh Thompson is an English teacher at Blacksburg High School. And he's going to refer to an acronym called PBIS. PBIS, which is nothing to do with peanut butter. It stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports, PBIS. It's a framework used by Virginia Public Schools to support positive academic and behavioral outcomes. So you can see, do you see the NEA link for Josh that they sent? Yeah. Anyway, so all right, sorry, I wasn't looking at this. So yeah, education justice provides a more effective education. It says there he envisions an education system actively advancing for social and racial justice. Boy, don't you infer what I'm inferring, which is this means a particular point of view is he hopes and wants the public school systems to deliver. Well, in case that summary at the top of that NEA post wasn't clear enough for you, I want to show you a clip where he's going to talk about this PBIS framework. And I think it was first on TikTok, but it's gone kind of viral. He's about to equate traditional expectations for students like sitting quiet and taking things in, quote, taking things in, as white supremacy.
I made a comment on one of Miss April's recent videos about PBIS, in which I stated that PBIS is white supremacy with the hug, and a lot of y'all wanted to know more about that, so here we go. So if PBIS concerns itself with positive behaviors, we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, what are those positive behaviors? And it's things like making sure that you're following directions and making sure that you're sitting quietly and you are in your seat, and all these things that come from white culture. The idea of just sitting quiet and being told stuff and taking things in a passive stance is not a thing that's in with many cultures. So if we're positively enforcing these behaviors, we are by extension positively enforcing elements of white culture, which therefore keeps whiteness at the center, which is the definition of white supremacy.
So who is the one saying that sitting quietly, focusing and taking things in is whiteness? That sounds like about the most racist thing someone could say. Connecting a behavior with a skin color. Here, this teacher's doing it. He writes NEA Teachers Union blog posts about how he wants to do this kind of thing more. And he's apparently unabashed enough about this point of view to record videos proudly. Was this
a TikTok video?
Yeah, TikTok video.
Yeah, it seems like the best of all of the teachers come out on TikTok. Yeah, for some reason. So, there's been a lot of viral videos from teachers on TikTok.
I guess you don't need James O'Keefe for this guy. You don't need a secret hidden camera. He's like, look, we sitting quietly and taking information is whiteness. He says it proudly. So we have to get rid of this thing called sitting quietly and taking in information because that's white supremacy. Anyway. So
how are we sure that this is the same person, or have people kind of mentioned
Fox
that
News Channel wrote that it was likely him. I've seen no denials or tractions that it was him. And in a way, okay, that's a good point. I guess he does in the clip. It doesn't say his name, but I'm whatever. So I said all I know about that part. But then, so still in Virginia, did you see the choicemedia.tv post? It's a commentary by Nathan Brinkman, who went himself to his 11-year-old's middle school orientation. You expect an 11-year-old middle school orientation to involve something like, oh, what elective might my child be? Maybe what foreign language was he going to take in, 7th grade or 6th grade or something, or what, what sports, or maybe is he going to be, in a band or something. Like, no, he took it with his own scroll down. He took with his own cell phone. We published this today. So he took photos about teaching kids to be revolutionaries. These are taken from a Virginia middle school from Nathan Brinkman's own cell phone, saying you can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail a revolution. and talking. These are kids who are not of age, by the way, to be involved in sexual practices by law, and yet there's all kinds of groups about LGBTQ and gender sensuality alliance being taught to these 11-year-old kids. Do the parents ever vote on this? Is this age appropriate for? To me, it's not even in a discussion of do you believe in, in the larger premises of any of these groups. It's more about it could also just be framed as age appropriateness. Mm-hmm. And so I say that to pair that with this Virginia teacher video clip that we just had from a different school district, by the way, but also the same state. And just to show that, again, to those who might just say these are, maybe only, in anecdotes that we find one or two places, it's not one or two places.
Well, and this middle school in this report on the Choice Media webpage, I believe it's one of the highest ranked middle schools in the state of Virginia. So, I mean, this kind of goes to show you that your school on paper could look like it's a quote unquote great school according to standardized test scores or whatever metrics they're using.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that the school aligns with what you want to be taught in the school or how you want those things to be taught. So yeah. I think these kinds of this kind of investigations on the part by parents are important so that they can see what's actually going on in the class and instead of just looking at a ranking system put on a state website.
Sure. This is a culture war. This, so when you see over 1 million kids, not showing up in public schools, I don't think it's just COVID. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's just masks or just vaccines. I think it's this stuff too. I have another one. I don't know if I just saw this on Twitter today from Parents Defending Education. They posted some pictures from. So I don't know if you remember the Project Veritas video it was in California, right? Sacramento.
It was in Sacramento, and there was a lot of propaganda in the classroom. And that teacher was on camera in an undercover interview with a Project Veritas journalist, essentially admitting that they wanted to, quote, scare the F out of the kids and to turn them into revolutionaries, essentially to brainwash them in class. And I think that teacher ended up on leave or something.
They fired him.
I think they actually fired him. Yeah. And so now we have similar types of flags and stuff in the classroom that was uncovered at Alexander Hamilton High School in Los Angeles Unified School District. And so here's some of you can see this looks like it's a BLM flag. We've got another, I don't even know what these are here, but there were some posters, essentially F the police, talking about how the last sentence here on the F the police poster says, that's why we fight for police and prison abolition. So calling to abolish the police. There's this F America, and then America spelt with KKK in it. Wow. This is native land, it says. Essentially looks like an anti-America poster. You got a anti-policing poster in the room. Yeah. And so this was uncovered by Parents Defending Education. Yeah. So, I mean, this just goes along with all of this other stuff.
Native land. Of course, they figure out which Native American tribe gets what land, right? Because they were fighting and killing each other for hundreds of years, so over land and all kinds of things. So with all of this happening, there was this the story in the Federalist I wanted to talk about. So like this is a form of public school choice actually, where parents get together and say like, what if we just had no politics? Or like, hey, maybe we should focus on things like algebra and maybe trigonometry, or I don't know, maybe what a stock portfolio would be like, or maybe how to read or something. Or so yeah. Pardon?
That's pretty radical, Bob, trying to teach kids how to read.
Merritt Academy, Woodland Park, Colorado, opening August 23rd. It's a public school, K through 8, plans to grow into a high school. Offers a environment to focus on creative and critical thinking through careful attention to classic works and traditional approaches to math and science. These are things parents wanted that weren't available through the Woodland Park School District, which, like many in the nation, have become computer-centered over the last several years. I think it's more than just computer versus not computer. I think it's also a lot to do with kind of getting back to basics. And what I wasn't clear on whether this was a charter school or whether they somehow got the district to agree to, hey, let's make one of our schools not political. Are you clear on that?
Yeah, that's the confusion I was having with this as well, because they said they had an issue with the article kind of points out that a lot of the times charter schools have to be authorized by their competition, the district, which is a problem for obvious reasons. It's like having Burger King be approved by every McDonald's in the area if they want to open up. There's an obvious conflict of interest. But then this, it doesn't seem, it seems like they're not charter schools to me. It seems like they're, I don't know if they're independently authorized.
Well, like, could the district, the way district creates a magnet school that's separate from the regular paradigm. That's how, that's not unheard of, that they could do that instead of making a, magnet school for performing arts or magnet school for math and science. This could be a magnet school for no politics.
It says, look, after WSPSD, after the school district denied their application in December 2020, the board made a Hail Mary pass to a Colorado school choice lawyer who donated his expertise. Brad Miller told them about a little-known Colorado law that authorizes boards of cooperative education services, or BOCES, to contract out education services. That means it could work like an independent charter school authorizer, which many states offer because local districts deny charter applications so often. So I think they found a way to get it done, to get around
through some strange Colorado law that has some, in between charter district kind of thing.
Yeah, so they opened, instead of as like a charter school, as a cooperative education service. I think that's the gist of it.
Well, interesting. The way the way there might be an education service authorized for blind kids or something like that, or like a specialty sort of education service, in other words, and that, maybe that's the way they did it. But it's just to me, the no politics part, of course, just was like, well, gee, how I could see that coming, right? I mean, I could see the need, it's oversubscribed. They have kids on waiting lists to get into this no politics school. Meanwhile, the teachers that love indoctrination will probably double down. They're like, oh, good, we got these troublemaker parents out of the way.
Yeah. Don't force politics on other people's kids, and don't force other people's kids into schools that don't align with your family's values, with their family's values. So what this got a lot of pushback. It was tweeted out a couple of days ago when they were starting schools again in New York City. By the way, New York City opened their public schools this week for in-person instruction.
As we pointed out, 18% of the kids aren't there. Go ahead.
Did you see this?
No, I didn't see this one.
This is a union of property services union, and it's a property services union.
SEIU, anyway, it's a labor union. Yeah.
And they're tweeting out like, oh my goodness, look at how great this is. We have COVID busters in full force, cleaning and disinfecting to make a safe return to classroom possible. And they thought they were so great tweeting this out, and that everybody was going to think it was such a great idea. You have a guy walking around a school classroom spraying who knows the hell what into the classroom, this mist that's going around the classroom, and it didn't go as planned. They had, at the time, 2,700 replies to this tweet. People calling this theater because COVID doesn't really spread by touch on surfaces.
That's been debunked largely.
Yeah. And so people are like, what are they doing? Like, we're 18 months into this and we still have people walking around school buildings spraying chemicals into the air. Huge waste of money.
Don't you figure that budget authorization was passed so long ago? It's like, oh, well, we got this money to pay some person to walk around spraying a bunch of, Lysol or something into the air. We got to do it. We already spent the money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the people, who landed these contracts on the taxpayer dime are probably happy about this, even though it might look like they're trying to do something that's helpful, but has scientifically been shown to not really make a difference in preventing the spread of COVID in the classroom. Yeah. So they turned off their replies, or it says people that they mention or follow can reply. So they limited the replies after these, 2,700 replies already started happening. Yeah. So I thought this was just the funniest thing over the past. I mean, it's not really funny. It's just ridiculous, most ridiculous thing over the past couple of days that people are just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It would have been more effective to make like an anti-COVID like costume mascot to like walk around to scare COVID away, and make a video of that. I think that would have probably been better. We've done 0.8% less COVID on today's show. I'm actually relieved. We've done so much COVID lately. But since we just started doing this, I know I started with that clip from the Michigan, but I wanted to talk about Milwaukee. With many of this is a video clip again, Corey, but many regard Milwaukee as a low-income district. In fact, school vouchers got started in Milwaukee, and the original impetus was the fact that they were broke, and they figured, so we can just spend a lot less money on vouchers for private schools, and that'll at least alleviate some of our financial pressures. Milwaukee is not there's a lot of low-income families in Milwaukee. And so you might think they wouldn't waste money a lot, but it turns out they have enough money to consider paying staff and students to get vaccinated, like paying them cash. Remember nurses haven't been paid to be vaccinated, municipal staff like at City Hall. I don't know any of them that have been paid to be vaccinated. I don't know anybody that's been paid to be vaccinated, essentially. But basically nobody. But the teachers in Milwaukee and the students may be paid to be vaccinated. And this is a clip from the Milwaukee NBC station.
The main incentive? Cash. And if people take the district up on their offer, it could cost Milwaukee Public Schools millions. According to a new report by the district, there are several options to consider. Cash. They're discussing between $100 and $500 a person. There's also paid time off, MPS merchandise, gift cards, and even a raffle. MPS would be following the example of many school districts around the country offering a range of cash incentives.
So to be able to provide, folks with some additional income and also being able to protect ourselves and protect our students, I think is a win-win for everybody.
The push to vaccinate comes as kids return to classrooms amidst the highest level of youth COVID cases in 9 months. Last week, 35 staff and 115 MPS students tested positive for COVID-19, up from 59 student positives the week before. During that same week, there were 410 new cases among people 17 and younger, nearly 33% of the city's total cases. Backers of a vaccine mandate say they want to protect students 12 and younger. That age group is still unable to receive the vaccine as researchers study the potential health impacts for people that young. Protection, influenced by incentives, comes at a cost. MPS estimates show at a minimum of $100 a person, the district would pay more than $4 million if all those eligible are vaccinated and receive an incentive. They'd pay out nearly $13 million if incentives were set at $300 a person. Chairwoman Harris, while behind incentives, believes it's one small part of boosting vaccination rates.
Most importantly is to really inform people about the benefits of getting the COVID-19 vaccine. I think that there's a lot of misinformation.
If a vaccine mandate passes, all employees would be required to submit proof of vaccination by November 1st, unless a reasonable religious or medical accommodation is approved. Those who refuse would be placed on leave and eventually fired if they don't comply. Reporting in Milwaukee, Bruce Harrison, TMJ4 News.
Oh, so $4 to $20 million, whatever. Just give it to them, right? Whatever. Just give them money. Just pay them money. It's for their own good, and it's free anyway. But just pay them to do it because we have money to burn.
Yeah, they have more money than they know what to do with, and
I'll tell you something else.
But
they're following the local news and general mainstream media rule about reporting in COVID with kids in schools. You know what the rule is? Don't talk about hospitalizations. Don't talk about deaths. Just talk cases. Case count, case count, case count, case count. Mm-hmm. Case count percentage, case count number, case count. That's all. You got to include all the asymptomatic. Include all of them. Don't say one word about who actually got sick or who actually got seriously sick, because those numbers won't scare the public. So don't leave those out. Just talk about case counts.
Yeah. And I mean, realistically though, like how much is a $100 stipend going to change teachers' minds when it comes to taking the vaccine? I feel like, if they're going to take it, they're going to take it, right, for the benefit of taking it and reducing risk of illness. I don't know if the $100 is going to make that huge. They're talking about the students too.
I guess it's the 12 and up students, but they're talking about paying. I can see students taking the cash. If you're like a, I don't know, 10th grader or something like that, a couple $100 or $100 might be incentive. But anyway, there you go.
Well, I almost wanted to name the episode after this headline because it was something that I was waiting for it to come out. And when it came out and the information went public, I just tweeted, "There it is," because I was expecting this to happen.
Oh, I loved that tweet on you. That you did. They called "There it is." I thought that was so eloquent and succinct.
Yeah, so there it is. And then when I transferred it over to Facebook, I just put "knew it," period, because come on, I think a lot of us were already expecting this. We had already seen reported in the New York Post a few months ago that the American Federation of Teachers lobbied the CDC on their guidance for safely reopening schools, making it more difficult, or at least making it easier to make a case for why schools should not be open for in-person instruction by tying those reopening decision, that guidance at least to the community transmission rates.
Now we kind of already knew this. We kind of already, in fact, Randy Weingarten justified it, and it was 6 months ago, right? We kind of all knew all this, but now I guess we have the emails. Is that the difference?
No. Before it was just the guidance changing on the school reopenings. That was tying certain metrics to the decision of whether you should reopen or not your public school district. Yeah. AFT had lobbied the CDC before to make it more difficult, essentially, to reopen schools for in-person instruction. Now, this latest article that was covered in Fox News, same group uncovered the information through a FOIA request, finding that the NEA was emailing with the CDC on the masking guidelines. Because before, the masking guidelines were just for, you had the guidelines for the kids that were, that you didn't have to mask if you were vaccinated. And then they switched it out of,
and this is the intercept.
Seemed like out of nowhere for everybody, vaccinated or not. And so now there's information uncovered showing that the largest teachers union, the NEA, was going to release a very harsh statement if the guidelines did not change in their favor. Right. And so there's like some email back and forth about how, oh yeah, we'll call them. Can you call our president, Becky Pringle? They ended up having that phone conversation with Becky and also with the head of the AFT, Randy Weingarten. And what it says on this Fox News article is it says, following discussion and coordination with the Biden White House, the NEA released a statement with a much less critical tone. One day later, after the phone conversation I was talking about, on May 14th, Erica Dinkle-Smith, the White House Director of Labor Engagement, said she stopped the NEA from releasing a critical statement that had called for immediate clarification. I'm looking for when the guidance changed.
This, correct me if I'm wrong, this is The Intercept that obtained these emails, right?
This was Americans for Public Trust.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, here it is. The next day on May 15th, the CDC updated its masking guidance to indicate that all people should wear a mask regardless of vaccination status. So, the main takeaway here is not a lot of people were surprised after we saw what happened with the school reopening guidance, but this is just further proof that there was interference between the teachers' unions and the CDC, again, when it came to school mitigation strategies. First with the reopening guidance and now with the guidance on masking in schools.
Right. Well, okay, so I don't think anyone who knew before about the union intervening in the school reopening debate to keep schools closed longer. Oops, sorry. I think I have an ad playing. I don't think anyone who knew about that, the union intervening in that, about the school, keeping the schools closed for longer, is going to drop their plate of food if you say, oh, and by the way, there's new information. The unions also were involved in this masking thing with the CDC. Like, I think, and plus, of course, the mainstream media is not going to be reporting this anyway, right? So the real people that would need to hear this are unlikely to hear anything about this story, seems to me. So, I mean, right?
Yeah, well, that's true. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. That doesn't mean Fox News shouldn't release the information. And some people have asked me, well, like why would the unions care about the school? It kind of made more sense with the school reopening thing if you could stay at home and do not have to commute, get the same paycheck, and reduce the risk associated with in-person instruction, even if it's already extremely low. Why would that makes sense? But what about the masking debate? Why would the unions push to have more masking requirements? And my take on that has been, one, it's similar to the school reopening debate in that it can reduce any perceived risk, no matter how small, and no matter the amount of evidence that is behind that is behind that amount of risk, and how much it can be limited with the use of masks in schools without any costs associated with their customers leaving if you don't have school choice policy. So they're not accountable for the feelings that families are having about these rules. So they can reduce their perceived costs without losing any of the benefits of the enrollment of those kids if you don't have robust school choice policies in place. That's one of the theories. But then another thing is that the unions, I would argue, profit from any form of chaos or disorder, because when things are going great, it's kind of hard to make an argument to the taxpayer as to why you need more resources.
Yeah.
But if everything's not all that great and there's just disorder, you can leverage that state of chaos as an argument for why you need more resources to return to normalcy.
Yeah, that's you made that point on this show before. I thought it was really good. It's basically that, I mean, and again, and you're doing now, you kind of, there's like two phases. There's the unions can virtue signal, look how great we are. We're saving lives. We're a moral group who just care about people's not dying. Like, so there's the virtue signal part, and then the chaos part, and they're separate, I think. And I think you said it well.
Yep, I think we're out of videos. I mean, something that I tweeted out a few days ago, 5 days ago, was in response to the Biden administration is saying that the civil rights arm of their U.S. Department of Education is opening up civil rights investigations into these red states that are banning mask mandates. So I think that was included in the Washington Post article I brought up earlier here. Biden administration opened civil rights investigation. So they're doing it in Florida. I think they're doing it in other states as well. And my take on this is this is kind of like upside down clown world, bizarro world, where they're trying to make the argument that allowing families to choose to mask their own kids is an infringement on their civil rights.
Yeah, we talked about that last time too. Yeah, where the idea is that you're somehow,
you're not forcing me to do something, so therefore you're infringing on my civil rights.
Yeah, my rights
seems
have
totally
been violated
backwards.
because someone hasn't been, because something, normally your rights are violated when something happens to you.
Yes.
This is your rights are violated if something hasn't happened to you. So I consider that a first. In American jurisprudence, prove me wrong. My rights are violated because something hasn't happened. I'm waiting for the first example of this in the past ever. Well, and I would say this: we've done a lot of on this episode. We've done a lot of East Coast, West Coast, by the way. A lot of California and a lot of East Coast, New York, Virginia, Florida. I think we've been leaving the middle of the country out a bit. So I wonder, maybe we can conclude with this story. I found this one. This is from heartlandernews.com. This is a school district that removes, in Missouri, that removes all middle school advanced courses to resolve equity issues. I called this in a tweet, academic instruction going full participation trophy. Basically, we are going to, if we just get excellence out of this school completely, this is a way to, I used to joke about this. I used to joke about that, I would joke, not that often because it's sensitive anyway, but I would joke sometimes about how, and I would say, it's just a joke. I would just say, but like this idea that, if you're really worried about achievement gaps, whether economic or racial or whatever, I'll tell you what, just make sure the smart kids stay, don't get any education. That'll eliminate achievement gaps. Don't let smart kids learn as much and you'll reduce the achievement gaps. Well, what seemed to be an absurdism to me a few years ago when I said this at a few conferences has now actually been taken up by a Missouri school district as a workable plan. Let us basically delete excellence from our middle schools so that equity can be furthered. I don't have too much to say about it.
Achieve equity by removing opportunity instead of by expanding opportunity.
Yeah. It's a joke. These people actually believe. I mean, it's insane.
This is kind of like people, when we make the argument for school choice by saying that funding students directly would allow for more equity by allowing more people to have educational options. The other side coming back and saying, "Oh no, we got to just outlaw or abolish private schools altogether. That'll do it." Yeah. If we just remove everybody's opportunities, that'll be better off. Everybody will be better off than just allowing more people to access options.
Yeah. And meanwhile, of course, who knows how many kids of color are actually benefiting from advanced courses that now won't benefit? Who knows how many poor white kids might be benefiting from advanced courses because they're really smart or they work really hard or any of the. So there are all kinds of constituencies that are not the 1% or something that would be hurt by this, who maybe already have struggles in their own lives in all kinds of ways. But this is how big top-down bureaucratic kind of, labyrinthian leviathans, cartels work. They don't care about the individual examples that an individual student of color or maybe even homeless kid might be hurt by this policy because they love that advanced course. It doesn't matter. It's this big, giant top-down thing where these experts are going to tell you, we know what to do. We're we're in charge, and we have degrees that are impressive, and so we're going to get rid of all of these, AP courses or something. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, AP tests, they can benefit people from all backgrounds, right? One of the main benefits is that it can get you college credits, right? If you get a high enough score on the AP test.
Dare I say, I don't have any crunch numbers. There have got to be millions of kids of color who benefit every year from AP courses just like this that are being eliminated. Not to mention extremely poor kids of all colors that benefit all the time from advanced courses because they're smart and work hard, and they for whatever reason have had education encouraged to them somewhere in their life. And so what this says is, we don't care. We don't care about any of that. This some sort of abstraction of a kind of social equity woke sort of, utopia matters more than those particular kids who'll be hurt. I just think, I don't know. Anyway, I just thought, look, this is actually becoming real. This joke I made about why don't you keep the smart kids from learning, that'll reduce the achievement gaps, is being taken seriously by the geniuses at St. Charles County, St. Charles County, Missouri.
One more story. I know we're over, but Axios actually covered this report by the Urban Institute.
Yes,
the report by the Urban Institute is called "Dividing Lines: Racially Unequal School Boundaries in U.S. Public School Systems," and they point out that a lot of the school district boundaries of today reflect 1930s era housing discrimination or redlining in the 1930s.
Yeah.
So some people have argued that the public school system, because of these boundaries, are essentially a form of systemic racism, because they're the result of these historically discriminatory housing policies in the 1930s that have led to segregated public schools and unequal public schools today. So they tweeted this out, and a lot of people responded to them by pointing out, well, school choice would be a good solution to this. Public schools are segregated today, and they aren't equal. One way to allow for people to get out of this segregated system would be to allow the money to follow the child to other schools as well. Or you can just get rid of the district boundaries altogether. Why not just erase those lines and allow for more public school choice too?
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who used to advocate for something, and I haven't heard spoken since he brought it up. And it's almost almost so brilliantly simple. I kind of wonder, his whole thing was like, abolish school districts. Let's just end school districts. Even in the public school paradigm, just have individual public schools run by principals. And the fact is yes, there's a thing called economies of scale. That's a real thing, and that's true. But there's another thing called bureaucratic bloat. And these have to be compared against each other. And it has been argued by some, including Jay Green of University of Arkansas, that the bureaucratic bloat part of large districts loses way more money than the economies of scale saves by having large school districts. And so I don't know, maybe this is I don't know why I brought this up just now, but the idea you could just get rid of school districts and maybe save money, not to mention have more, address things like this story of old redlining style districts being a tool to foster segregation. You could just have kids enroll in whatever public school is around them, or they decide, or they like, or whatever, and not have school districts. I'm kind of down with that.
Yeah, I mean, you essentially cut out the middleman. You could have the funding even without school choice. I mean, if we don't talk about school choice, have the funding go directly to the schools and let them set their own budgets instead of having it go to a district where you got to pay all these administrators, and just have the money go to the school. I would rather the money go to the families and then go to the school. But I think a step in the right direction would be to get rid of the school districts, save a lot of money that way, and then
money go to families, and then they take it to the public school. but it's still a public. It still has some sort of public funding that maybe has some fixed cost part or something, and then the student brings the student part. You know, the way state universities get state money, but there's also tuition paid by the kids who show up to the state university. It could be like that. Anyway, thank you, loyal viewers and listeners, for sticking with us, sticking to the end of another random assignment program. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out. We'll see you next week on the Random Assignment Podcast.